As of March 5th, 2026, the conflict has expanded again. Iran has now widened its regional attacks by targeting both Turkey and Azerbaijan, marking another escalation in what is already the largest missile and drone campaign the Middle East has ever seen. According to the latest compiled data, Iran has launched more than 2,610 projectiles across 13 countries since the campaign began. Out of that total, 1,799 are drones, that's about 69%, and 812 are missiles, roughly 31%. But here's the key detail most people are missing. 86% of all these strikes have hit Gulf Cooperation Council territory. So the overwhelming majority of Iran's firepower isn't going toward Israel or Western forces. It's going toward its own Gulf neighbors. Now let me break down the numbers. United Arab Emirates, about 1,276 projectiles detected, roughly 1,190 were intercepted, leaving 86 that got through. That's one of the largest volumes of attacks in the entire campaign. Kuwait, at least 562 projectiles detected, though detailed interception numbers haven't been publicly released yet. Bahrain, about 200 projectiles detected, with 153 intercepted and 47 getting through. Qatar, 163 projectiles detected, 148 intercepted, and 15 that were not intercepted. Saudi Arabia, 38 projectiles detected, 36 intercepted, with 2 slipping through. Oman, 8 drones detected, 6 intercepted, 2 not intercepted. So overall, the Gulf's layered air defense network is absorbing the vast majority of incoming threats. Systems across the region are intercepting well over 80 to 90% of the incoming projectiles in many sectors, which is exactly what integrated missile defense is designed to do. Now here's the strategic pattern behind these attacks. Iran has concentrated a massive amount of its drone launches on the UAE and Kuwait, and that's not random. Those two countries are geographically closest to Iran across the Persian Gulf. That means Iranian drones spend far less time in the air before reaching their targets. Shorter flight times make interception harder, and they allow Iran to launch larger saturation waves without needing extremely long-range UAVs. In other words, distance is working in Iran's favor in those sectors. But look at Israel. The targeting pattern is completely different. Israel has been hit with far more missiles than drones in this phase of the campaign. Why? Because the IRGC has clearly adapted to the reality that most drones heading toward Israel get intercepted long before they arrive. Between Israel's own defenses and US assets in the region, slow UAVs simply don't survive the trip. So instead, Iran is allocating its long-range missile inventory toward Israel while dumping the bulk of its drones toward the Gulf states, the very countries Tehran constantly calls its regional brothers. Now, the number of ballistic missiles they are able to launch overall has been significantly reduced due to American and Israeli strikes on their launchers. So expect to see them fire hundreds more drones and a few dozen ballistic missiles per day in the coming days. And that brings us to the targets themselves. Several strikes have hit energy infrastructure, including the Bahrain Petroleum Company refinery, which processes roughly 267,000 barrels of oil per day. There have also been reported hits or attempted strikes against refineries, tourist centers, hotels, and civilian infrastructure across the Gulf, which completely destroys the talking point you keep hearing online that Iran is only targeting American military bases. Unless, of course, the pro-IRGC fanboys now want to argue that US bases are secretly hidden inside oil refineries, luxury hotels, tourist districts, and residential neighborhoods, because that's where many of these projectiles are actually landing. So the data is very clear. Iran has expanded the war, increased the geographic scope of its attacks, and concentrated the majority of its drone campaign against nearby Gulf states rather than Israel. And at the same time, the region's integrated air defense network is still intercepting the majority of the incoming firepower, which means the real story here isn't who launches the most missiles, it's who can actually defend against them. Because Because I'll tell you for free, Iran is not intercepting the weapons hammering their command centers, launch sites, naval vessels, submarine, and leadership. Thank you to the troops manning those air defense assets and the pilots flying interception missions. They are literally protecting not just their citizens, but also our African brothers living and doing business there. All the IRGC fanboys celebrating the targeting of civilian areas, I hope you'll be celebrating when you hear your brother in Dubai was unalived by a Shahid drone.